Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right. Yeah, the SEC has gotten a ton of teams into the NCAA tournament, kind of shockingly so. We're going to talk about that. Also, Bubba, Cunningham over at North Carolina. They somehow got the final spot in, and there's a lot of people that are not happy about it. They think there's some politics involved.
Ooh, I love to dance a little sidestep. Now they see me, now they don't. Have come and gone.
And based on quad one wins, it's not looking so good. But we're going to talk all about that too. And the first seed, Auburn's going to be playing Alabama State or St. Francis. Florida also got a number one seed. They're going to be playing Norfolk State. Duke got another number one seed. They're going to be playing American or Mount St. Mary. And the other number one seed, Houston. They'll be playing SIUE, whoever that is. The Tennessee Vols will be playing Wolford on the 20th, which is a Thursday. I don't know what time that's going to be yet. And if they win that game, they're either going to play UCLA or Utah State on the 22nd. They win that, they would advance to the 28th, which I believe is the Sweet 16. And they'd either be playing, looks like, Kentucky or Illinois, most likely. So the SEC got 14 out of 16 teams into the tournament, which is shocking. I don't believe that's ever been done. And the SEC has kind of been dominating. I mean, if you think about the top four teams that I could see making it at least to the Final Four, I'd probably put Florida number one. I mean, they've got the ability to hit three from about 4 or 5 different guys. If you watch the SEC tournament, I was waiting for the water boy to come out there and hit a three for Florida. I mean, they had every guy out there shooting threes, 7-footers, and they looked really good. I mean, they dominated Alabama. They beat my Tennessee Vols pretty soundly by 9 points, and they're the hottest team going right now. Now, of course, Auburn has been tough all year, and ever since they won the SEC, and that's difficult to finish out a season when you've won everything. I think they kind of took the foot off the gas, which is a tricky thing to do as a team. You've got to be able to turn it back on. And the SEC tournament's not, you don't get a lot. You know, if you win it, it's not that big a deal anymore. It used to be a big deal. But now I don't even think they take that into consideration with the seeding. I think even if Tennessee would have won that game against Florida, Florida was still going to be a number one seed. And I think Tennessee would have stayed right where they're at. The number 5 pick, basically a number 2 seed. So it probably didn't make much difference. And here it talks about the SEC setting this record. And a lot of the coaches said playing in the SEC, the Ole Miss head coach said it was the gauntlet. John Calipari said it was a meat grinder. And getting 14 of its 16 teams in at 87.5%, best ever, topping the 77.7% that the Big East got in back in 1991. And here you see the breakdown. SEC in 2025, Big East in 1991. Here's the ACC that used to be the conference for years. And on down the line, as far as percentage of teams that got in. And I think the SEC, it's got to be NIL that's dominating this, and the fact that there are so many great athletes in the Southeast. Now, I always wondered how the ACC got so many great players, and I think it was tradition was a lot of it. Hey, you can go over there and win a natty. Now with NIL, they're going to go where the money is. And if you're in the SEC, you know, a lot of those teams have extra money. And look, folks down here, they like basketball. Now, they love football, but they enjoy basketball too. I know the Tennessee Vols love basketball. And yesterday we had 2 ball games going on at 1 o'clock. We had Florida playing Tennessee in the SEC championship basketball. Then we had Florida playing Tennessee at 1 o'clock in baseball. And Tennessee lost that basketball game, obviously, but they handled the Florida baseball team, which was number 7 in the country, pretty handily. Yeah, pretty much swept them and also run ruled them in the second game. So Tennessee is 20-0 in baseball, which is just, it's never been done. They're killing it and coming off a national championship.
How's bragging camp going?
They're feeling pretty good about themselves, to say the least. But yeah, the SEC has really dominated basketball this last season, and I expect them to in the NCAA tournament. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if the SEC had, you know, at least 2 teams in the Final Four. That wouldn't shock me in the slightest. It actually surprised me if that didn't happen. I think you're going to have a tough time knocking out Florida, Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee. That's 4 teams right there. They're going to be tough to get knocked out. Now that I've said that, it'll probably happen, but I kind of doubt it. Most people think they're going to do just fine. Now we need to talk about Bubba Cunningham. Bubba was the chairman of the committee that made all the decisions on who gets in the NCAA tournament. And North Carolina was the last team in. They barely made it. Shocking, huh? Well, there's a lot of controversy over it, to say the least. And here it talks about he's under fire for controversial March Madness pick, and he had contract incentives that were revealed. In other words, North Carolina getting in put a bunch of money in his pocket. And it talks about how the athletic director, again, who was the chairman of the selection committee, said he couldn't be in the room when the Tar Heels are discussed, but he was the chairman. Kind of reminds you of Ward Manuel being the chairman of the college football playoff committee, and how he didn't take strength of schedule into consideration at all. And the fact that a lot of SEC teams had really strong schedules, and a lot of teams didn't get in that a lot of people thought had a legitimate chance based on strength of schedule. But again, who the chairman is matters a lot. And here it talks about the benefits financially to Cunningham. Said he got a 1 month bonus, which was almost $68,000 for North Carolina getting in. That's a nice little chunk of change, don't you think?
Back off me, man. Back off.
Also gets bonuses based on how well they do. They'd get $75,000 for a Final Four, $50,000 for a Sweet 16. So a lot of incentive there. Here a fella said, this is simply a ridiculous conflict. Bubba Cunningham gets over $100,000 for UNC making the NCAA tournament. I think it's a little less now. I think it's a 70, but it could end up being a lot more. And if you look here, the most controversial part is North Carolina was 1-12 in quad one games. They won 1 out of 13. Indiana was 4-13. West Virginia was 6-10. Ohio State was 6-11. But again, North Carolina 1-12. And a lot of people thought West Virginia should have gotten in. And North Carolina being the last pick, man, I'm telling you, I remember North Carolina they are the blue blood. If you think about the 80s and 90s, some of those teams they had, you remember when they had Jordan and James Worthy and Carl Pickens? I can't remember all the different players, but the fact I can even remember some of the names from the 80s, I mean, they have always been loaded. I mean, you never even thought about whether or not they were getting in the NCAA tournament. It's just whether they were going to be a 1, 2, or a 3 seed. And to see what has happened to them, that they've got to have their athletic director help them get the final spot in 64, 68 teams. What's happened in North Carolina?
What have you become? Oh, God. Grampy, what have I become?
Yeah, that's not too good. Things have really hit rock bottom over there for basketball, for North Carolina, as far as what they're used to. I'm sure they're kind of in shock right now where their program sits. I know I am. And I'm not the only one that's noticed. A lot of people are talking about this. And this is TJ over at College Football Addiction and one of his buddies on Locked On Big 12. Both these guys put out great content, by the way. I've watched a lot of both these guys' shows. Here's their opinion on what happened.
This isn't really a shot at them. Like, I'm not trying to crap.
Right.
Like, I don't really care. I'm just saying it doesn't look very good for your commissioner and North Carolina being an absolute blue blood of college basketball who had a very disappointing year. Like, North Carolina fans will be the first to tell you that. For their commissioner to be the chair, and I know they're going to comment, oh, well, he has to leave the room. Do you believe any of this crap? Like, come on. He's got to leave the room like we're 5-year-olds, right? Hey, go outside in the hall. We're going to take a test. Come on. And just the fact that he's got influence in there with people are going to lean certain ways because he's not keeping his mouth shut on that. And the appearance of potential impropriety here is huge. And so, yeah, I mean, they just, there's no other way to say it. This wasn't close. They got jobbed. And as someone who has been complaining about getting jobbed for the last year and a half, this is just what we're going to get out of college sports.
Right, which is so I mean, they're admitting it, right? You rob a bank, and then after you rob the bank, you send the leader of the robbers to the press conference saying, we have no idea who robbed this bank, and they've got the camera footage to match, like, oh, it's that guy. Chris Fallica tweets, UNC getting in over West Virginia, which had neutral site wins over Gonzaga and Arizona. A road win against Kansas is a bad call. Barrett Sallee, Indiana, 4-13 versus quad one. Ohio State 6-11 versus quad 1. West Virginia 6-10 versus quad 1. They all got left out. For 1-12 North Carolina, combined North Carolina and Xavier for quad 1 wins, they have 2. And each of those teams made it in. And the most hated man in West Virginia right now is Bubba Cunningham, the athletic director at North Carolina.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about this. And I happen to have a video of Bubba Cunningham when he was outside of the room and while the committee was talking about making their decision. And I'll show that to you.
Is everything all right?
Yeah, so clearly he was outside the room. He was following the rules, so I don't see what the problem is. Anyway, a lot of people are upset about it, and you can see why. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's me know continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, hit this little button right here. Won't cost you a dime, help you get my videos. And right over here is the most recent video YouTube. Thanks, you'll enjoy. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.